I'm Dana Russell with Kokopelli Real Estate and Property Management, and this is the Kokopelli Connection, where we discuss the history, happenings, and lifestyle of Western Colorado. On this episode of the Kokopelli Connection, Don Potter with COPMOBA discusses mountain biking in the Grand Valley and what COPMOBA does to build and maintain trails. If you move to the Grand Valley because of mountain biking, this is a unique look behind the scenes at our trail system. Don tells us his favorite place to ride, and I'm betting most of you haven't ridden it. We also discuss the lengthy process required to build new trails and who governs and maintains existing mountain bike trails. Let's jump into it. Don, can you tell us, what does COPMOBA stand for?
Sure. So COPMOBA actually stands for Colorado Plateau Mountain Bike Trail Association, which is a lot of words, and that's why it's been abbreviated. COPMOBA is kind of a cool organization. It's been around since 1989, officially.
Okay.
It was really founded to work on the Kokopelli Trail, which runs 138 miles from Fruita to Moab. And the organization was about split 50-50 between Colorado and Moab residents when it was started.
Okay.
It's kind of a joint venture. Moab has since kind of blossomed with their own organizations, and so we stay on this side of the mountain most of the time, or this side of the border most of the time. But we do work with them occasionally on some projects that get out toward the border.
I can't believe it's been around since '89. Yeah,
so there were several different groups in the area, and I wasn't here when it was founded, so this is all stuff that I've just learned along the way. COPMOBA just kind of became the group. They just all kind of consolidated, and it was a group of people that loved bikes. And think back to 1989 in Grand Junction, the population was only about 90,000 people. We've added about 70,000 since then, so there was a lot of open space. And they just loved exploring and seeing what was around. Decided, hey, why don't we put this little group together and make it official? So, yeah, we're 36 years in now. So is
mountain biking in the Grand Valley, is that when it started to really take off, was in the late 80s, or?
So I think mountain biking in general throughout the 80s really started to get popular. And then into the 90s is when you started seeing some suspension modifications, and people weren't just putting bigger tires on their road bikes anymore. They were kind of specifying that there are mountains to be ridden, and it's a different discipline. The organization, what am I going to say here? It kind of formed to legitimize the trails. So mountain biking has been around. People have been making their own trails for a long, long time, but they weren't formally recognized as trails. And so that was a big push of the organization, was to make these official and get the support of others instead of just the trail users. So COPMOBA is kind of an interesting organization. A lot of people think that we are the absolute final word when it comes to trails. We're really an advocacy group that, because we've been around so long and because we have a pretty healthy membership, we have a lot of say, but we don't have any official last word status. So COPMOBA is an entirely volunteer organization. All of our board of directors, all of our committee members, all of our volunteers, we're all just volunteers. We have one paid person who handles our membership and some of our back-end administrative. Other than that, everybody you see out with a COPMOBA shirt is doing it because we love the trails. And we love riding, and we want other people to enjoy it too.
Which means you're a volunteer as well then, huh?
Which means I'm a volunteer as well. Yeah. So any of the time that I donate to the organization is just my time. Part of the reason that I moved to Grand Junction is the trails. When I came here in 2018, that was a big consideration in where I wanted to live. Spent a lot of time over here riding anyway. Spent a lot of time over here exploring, and I figured, you know what, I ought to just be next to the trails. That's where I want to be anyway.
What's your favorite trail to ride?
Personally, my favorite trail is the Gunnison Bluffs system. A lot of people don't know about it.
No, I don't think we've ever heard of that one.
It's out by the landfill, south of the landfill on the way to Whitewater.
Oh.
So,
yeah, I've No, not heard of that at all.
Yeah, I love it just because it's so secluded, because most people don't realize it's there. It's got a 12-mile figure eight that's out there.
And now you've kind of let the cat out of the bag.
I have, yeah.
You know.
I told a lot of people about this. I actually rode with some people from Montrose out there Wednesday that had also never been there. It's one of the interesting spots. It's kind of going back to the 1989 version of the Grand Valley. There's a 12-mile recognized figure eight out there, but there's actually about 31 miles of trail that have been ridden in and hiked in over the years that just aren't officially named. One of the reasons that I really like that area too is it's a lot of greens. There's some elevation changes. There's some places where even when I'm tired, I hop off and I walk my bike up the hill because it's just too steep and I don't feel like burning my legs up anymore. But you can take just about any rider out there and they'll be able to ride it. There are only a few rock sections where they may want to jump off and walk around. So I think just about everybody else's favorite trail is going to be Horse Thief Bench. And COPMOBA was really instrumental in building that in the early 90s. After they got done with the Kokopelli Trail, they kind of worked on the Kokopelli system, and Horse Thief Bench was kind of the pride of the Kokopelli system. It still is. It's known nationally. It's known internationally. People come from all over the place just to ride that trail and see others ride the drop-in. So as far as just super fun trail to ride, I would say that's probably up there on my list too. But the Gunnison Bluffs area is really where I love to ride. You get right out onto the Gunnison River, and there's nobody else around. Wednesday morning, there were 3 of us. We didn't see a single other rider. We did see a couple of hikers, and that was all in about an hour and a half of riding.
Oh, that's nice. We'll have to try that trail. Yeah. So going back to the board, who makes up the board? How many people are on the board? Tell us about that.
So COPMOBA covers most of Western Colorado. It's another thing that people don't realize is we are a pretty big organization. We have about 400 members. It fluctuates between 400 and 600. Events can have a pretty big effect on our membership.
And when you say Western Colorado, are you meaning anything west of kind of the divide, or is it, north-south?
We're really west of the Mesa is kind of what we do. But we have 4 chapters that make up COPMOBA. So we have the Grand Valley chapter here. We have a Montrose, a Delta, and then a Ridgeway chapter as well. And each one of those are responsible for maintaining trails in their respective areas. We do cross over a lot. Montrose and Ridgeway both have races coming up in the next couple of months. A lot of the Grand Valley residents and members will race in those races and those events, and we go down there and we help with trail maintenance as well. Our big... Let's go back to the question of how we're made up. I'm getting off track.
It's easy to do.
So we have an overall board that controls all 4 chapters of about 15 people. And that's our board of directors. And then they have an executive committee of president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. Each chapter also has its own local committee that kind of governs how things happen in that area. We do have overall goals. The advantage of having a board of directors that sees all 4 is we don't have each chapter reaching out to all of the individual governmental agencies that we deal with. Here in Grand Valley, we deal with the BLM, the Forest Service, the City of Grand Junction, the City of Fruita. We try to keep those discussions at the board level so that we don't dilute the influence that we've had. We've been really fortunate in that 36 years that we've built some awesome relationships. And we hear all the time from partners around the world or around the country that they struggle just getting FaceTime with their local officials. Whereas we're recognized, and when we reach out to someone, they generally will schedule a meeting with us immediately. They don't even question why we're reaching out. So each of the chapters has their own little trail systems. They have their monthly meetings. They have their stoke nights. They have their races. And we all kind of come together. It's a cool organization to be a part of.
Morgan, do you have a question? What's your question?
Was the Horse Thief drop-in made that way, or did you guys make it?
It was built that way by whatever built it. So we just used it, and made it part of the trail, but we didn't bring all those rocks in and pile them up like that.
Oh.
Have you ever ridden it?
Only a little bit of it.
Only a little bit, just the very top?
Uh-huh.
Maybe someday. You can ride all the way to the bottom. That would be awesome.
Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
What trails have you guys built?
Well, we built a lot of trails in 36 years. I mentioned that we built the Kokopelli Trail going all the way to Moab. Most of the Kokopelli Trail system. A lot of times what we do is make improvements to trails. So over time, people will go out and they'll kind of build their own trails, or there will be a trail that someone's just been riding for 20 years and it's not official. We will go out and we'll try to make it official, and we get it up to most of the time BLM standards, because that's where a lot of our trails are on BLM land. We will build features that will help the water run off the trail so that it doesn't deteriorate. We'll put in rocks, we'll put in jumps, we'll put in whatever the BLM will allow us to do. We've built most of the 18-road trails. We built the Palisade Plunge, the Rat trails, the Electric Hills trails. There are a lot of trails that we've had a hand in either building directly or making rideable and making sustainable.
Where are the Electric Hills trails?
So those are just outside of Montrose.
Oh, okay.
That's a newer trail system. It opened in 2022.
Okay.
A lot of fun. That's where the Montrose chapter is going to have their race at. I think it's May 17th.
Oh, okay.
Did you guys build any of the trails in Rifle?
Nope. That is actually Rambo. That's the Rifle Area Mountain Bike Association. Or Mountain Bike Organization. They do the same thing that we do, but up the valley just a little bit.
And are you putting any new trails in?
So we're not up in the Grand Valley right now. We have been told to kind of pull back a little bit. We opened the Palisade Plunge a couple of years ago. That's 31 miles. We added 14 miles, or were instrumental in helping add 14 miles to 18 Road. We had a lot of help on that, so I don't want to claim that we were the only ones responsible. We've added some trails at the Kokopelli. We've added some trails at Lunch Loops. And the BLM has kind of said, hey guys, maybe 40 miles in a couple of years is enough. Let's pull back for a bit. So some of our other chapters have been really active. This year, RAT is finalizing the Ridgeway area trails, are finalizing an extra 5 miles at Ridgeway. And then I mentioned Electric Hills. They just finalized that whole trail system as well. So a lot of our maintenance, or a lot of our focus up here in the Grand Valley is on maintenance right now.
So with 18 Road, did you guys have any, were you able to get it paved? Was that COPMOBA at all, or was
no,
that
wasn't really us.
Okay.
I think the big driver for that, I don't know from the inside, but I think the big driver was having the high school mountain bike races out there last October.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of feedback came from that kind of made the BLM accelerate their paving process.
Okay.
We've been told for years that it was going to be paved, and we just didn't know when. It was one of those, hey, maybe in the next couple of years, and then a couple of years later we hear, hey, maybe in the next couple of years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we found out they were getting ready to do it, which is awesome.
It took longer to get from 18 Road out to the North Desert than what it did from Grand Junction to Fruta. Right. It's a long haul.
Yeah, and the BLM has really recognized, and the city of Fruta also have recognized the amount of tourism and the amount of funding that mountain biking brings into the valley. Yeah. And they've embraced it. That's one of the reasons why the BLM did all the campground improvements up there. They built a specific race events area, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because they realize that it's a huge asset to our valley. Yeah.
Yeah. We went to that GVYC race last year in October, and it was nice the way they had it laid out, how it came through the campground so you could do some good cheering for the racers, and then they had their tents, and it was a nice setup that they had.
So as I mentioned, COPMOBA is not the ultimate king of the trails. We work with all kinds of organizations. So GVC or GVYC is one that we work with on a pretty regular basis, and we have crossover members who are also members of that organization. There are several riding groups in the valley: Desert Dose, Bone Shakers, the Dirt Mermaids are great. We do a lot of work with them. Many of their members are also COPMOBA members because they do love this sport as much as we do. So I mentioned that we're not really building new trails. What we're doing for maintenance right now, because we've been told to kind of back off a little bit, is focusing on some of the existing features that need work. So one of those right now, a big push for us this year, is the Lunch Loop Bike Park. It was originally built in 2010. Do you guys know where the jumps are? Yeah. So they don't look anything like they did 15 years ago. And so we got with the City of Grand Junction last year, and we got permission to start digging there again. And so this year we're going to be redoing that park and adding some features and redoing some of the features that have deteriorated over time.
If you need some ideas, I'm sure Colin has a few that he would like to see implemented.
Yeah. So we have to have permission anytime that we go out and we dig. And we kind of have a standing permission from the Forest Service and the BLM. With that, we also have to have trained crew leaders that know the government standards of how a trail needs to be built. Out in a lot of the federal government land, they don't really want jumps. They want more natural features. They want it to look like maybe it's a wildlife trail that's also being used by people. And so they have specific building standards. We send all of our trail crew leaders through an approved leader course. It's usually 2 days with a BLM instructor or a certified instructor to teach them how the trails need to look and how to properly create drainage to build sustainable trails. With the City of Grand Junction, we actually have a maintenance agreement that we can build that Lunch Loops trail and that we can do whatever work that we need to on it. We are also in the process of working on a jump park at Matchett Park, if you guys have been up there at all. So that one's kind of a unique one. There's a group of builders that just started working on Matchett Park, and the city didn't really know it was happening. And then when the city found out that it was happening, they said, hey, maybe we want to pull this back. So that group came to us and said, hey, would you guys be willing to partner with us? Because of our existing relationships with the city, we're currently working on another mutual agreement for us to be able to maintain and build those jumps and those lines. And we're pretty hopeful that that's going to come to fruition here in the next couple of months, and that we'll have full permission to get that, so that the city doesn't come in and wipe it out and build something else in its place.
That'd be kind of cool. Morgan, did you have a question?
Yeah. Did you guys build Gunny Loop?
Yeah, so the Gunny Loop is part of... It was built over time with the Lunch Loops. So it's one of those trails that kind of got ridden in over time. It's been there for years. And COPMOBA was one of the organizations to reach out to the BLM and say, hey, let's formalize this. One of the considerations that we always have to take into account is we're not the only trail users out there. So when we go to build a new trail, we have to also consider that there are people on horses, there are pedestrians, there are hikers, there are runners, there are motorcycle users, there are ATV users who also want to use the same land. So we really have to be cognizant that we're not the only ones. We can't just say, hey, there's vacant land over here, we should ride mountain bikes on it. That would be awesome. But we get that people also want to ride horses on their land. And they should be able to. So we work in conjunction with a lot of those organizations as well. Some of the trails in the area originally were motorcycle trails, and they've been converted to just no mechanical use now, so just hiking and mountain biking. Some of the trails aren't good for other uses. So there's some trails out of Kokopelli I'm thinking more fun. It's not really a lot of fun to hike up. It's not a lot of fun to mountain bike up, but mountain biking down can be a lot of fun.
It can be more fun.
It can be more fun. Yeah, it can also hurt if you crash because it's a pretty rough trail. So we work with a lot of other user groups too to make sure that we're not stepping on their feet and that we're not just overtaking an area.
So when you, I want to talk a little bit more about developing a new trail. When you're looking at an area, a piece of land that you want to put a new trail in, what goes into that process? Are there environmental studies? Are there studies on the wildlife?
So that's another thing that I don't think people understand. And we get a lot of comments of, hey, I want to see a trail here. And that's great. We would all love to see a trail here. But realistically, building a new trail, a trail system anyway, is going to be about a 10-year process.
Oh, wow.
There are lots of environmental studies that have to be done, particularly in this area. Archaeological studies have to be done. Make sure that we're not disturbing any prehistoric native sites. There are endangered cacti all over the valley
that have to be
maintained. We actually have quite a few trails that are closed seasonally for animals, for mating or for migrating, that we just can't go on them because they're out there for the animals. So that's always a consideration. The government has a lot of different guidelines on building that trail. We have to justify why a trail in that area is needed and why we are the organization that should be using it. Again, considering maybe this is better for an ATV group than it is for mountain bikers. We have, right now in Mesa County, a little over 300 miles of trail that's rideable. Some of that is ATV and motorcycle trail also, but it's accessible to mountain bikes if you'd like to go. It's a very long process, and unfortunately, last year, the BLM actually shut down 2 trail systems that were illegally built. It was some people that just went out and built the trail. They said, hey, this is a great place for a trail. And they built some pretty cool trails, but it didn't go through that process. Okay. And the unfortunate part about it is it looks bad on all trail users when that type of thing happens, because people wonder why the mountain bikers are out there doing that. And the trails were both plowed under, basically, and replanted and given back to the land. I think in one of those cases, the builder was actually cited for building unlawful trails or building unauthorized trail, whatever the charge might be. But it's a very long process involving a whole lot of different people.
Okay. Powderhorn has very limited trails compared to other resorts. Granted, it is smaller than a lot of other resorts, but we have always wished for more trails at Powderhorn. Is that an area that COPMOBA has any influence in, or no?
Not really at Powderhorn, because it's privately owned. Or privately, it's technically Forest Service land, but it's privately managed. We have built a lot of trails up on top of the mesa. A lot of connectors that get over to Powderhorn. We all love the downhill biking too, or most of us love the downhill biking too. But no, because of the private nature of Powderhorn, we don't have a lot of interaction with their trails. We don't do any maintenance up there. We focus on public lands.
Okay.
Did you do anything with turkey flats?
Yeah. So Turkey Flats is one of the areas that we maintain. That one is really a collaboration with the equestrians, with horseback riders. They utilize it, I would say, probably more than mountain bikers do. And so we do work with them to keep it open to both user groups, and we were instrumental in helping to make those official trails. But I don't want to discount the work that the equestrians did, because they did a lot of work up on the Mesa Highway.
And then, has any trails gotten destroyed up there?
That's where one of the illegal trails was. It was just outside of Turkey Flats, and it was a downhill. Downhill has really become popular in the last few years. People love riding downhill. They love jumps. I get it. I love it too. And a lot of our trails are, as I mentioned before, they want them to be more natural. So they've really kind of shied away from the super fast progressive trails in the past. We actually, here in the Grand Valley chapter, founded a progressive trails subcommittee earlier, I guess it was the end of last year. And they are the ones that are spearheading the work at Magic Park right now. We're also looking on how we can build some smaller downhill trails into existing trail networks. Because we're not able to go out and build a full trail network, we've got about a 15-mile plan that we'd like to add to the Kokopelli trails. and we've kind of been told, just give that a rest for now, we'll bring it up later. So we're looking at where we can maybe put some connector trails with some downhill elements into the existing networks.
Morgan, do you have a question? Or no? No? Do you have another question, bud? No? Okay. Let me look through my notes here. I know I had a bunch more questions.
Well, it's an exciting time right now. We're coming up on Bike Month next month.
Yes.
Mesa County Bike Month, which is huge. So just with all of the stuff that's going on in the Valley, Fruita Fat Tire Fest is next weekend. The Rides and Vibes is going to be the weekend after that. The To It Gravel.
2 participants for Rides
and Vibes. 2 Rides and Vibes.
Here,
awesome. Yeah. Very awesome. Are you guys doing the downtown race on, I think it's Friday night?
The crit?
Yeah?
Yep.
That's great. That's super cool.
I think Colin's going to ride his unicycle in the crit, and then Morgan, she'll ride the bike that I had when I was like 3. So her knees are well above the handlebars.
That is awesome.
And then we just actually did a recent episode with Morgan Murray for the Desert Gravel race series. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the Desert Gravel's coming up, the To It Gravel's coming up, the Sarlacc Attack is coming up. That's part of the Desert Gravel, I think.
That's the same weekend as Rides and Vibes, correct?
I think so, yes. And To It is the same weekend as Fat Tire Fest. It's next week.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also the Debec Wild Horse race coming up, I think the end of May.
Okay.
We're not super heavily involved in that because it's a gravel race that takes place on county roads. Instead of off the trails. We have a lot of members that ride it. Most of our members don't just stick with one type of bike. Mm-hmm. I imagine your house also probably has several different types of bikes. We all love, whether it's mountains, gravel, road, whatever, just pedaling. It's fun. And we love to do any discipline that we can. What other events do we have? I'm going to refer to my notes here too. Those are the big ones, I guess, that are coming up. Our years are really broken up into a spring season and a fall season. We don't do a lot of events during July and August when it's 100 degrees outside. Yeah. But April and May, obviously, when our weather is gorgeous like it is today, and everybody wants to be outside, are when the events are. And then in September and October, we have a bunch of events that pop up too. One of the biggest events, as far as a fundraising aspect, any money that we get outside of administrative costs, we try to put back into the trails, whether that is feeding work crews or helping fund studies to build new trails or to improve trails. One of the big fundraisers that we have that's great, it popped up a couple of years ago, is called the Hot Dogger. And it's done out at 18 Road.
Oh,
have you heard of this one? It's great. So you either get points for riding loops on the trails or for eating hot dogs. And it's a giant race. I think it's 12 hours. You've got a team of people, so you get a break. But it's super fun, and they've really embraced COPMOBA, and they've helped us with quite a few projects now with the funding that they've provided. So that's not coming up until October. We're not really too focused on it, but it's a great event.
Have you done that race?
I have not done that race.
No.
I've been out there and watched it, but I've not ridden it. No.
COPMOBA is, with them being an advocacy group, does that do they do any advocacy legally, or is it just mostly local for trail building? Like, do they get in that realm of keeping land open for potential trails?
We have in the past issued statements or issued opinions.
Yeah.
We try not to, if we can avoid it. There was a situation recently where the state of Utah was trying to take back all the federal land, and we were monitoring that really closely because that could have massive effects on access to our trails. Most of our trails are on federal land here. And so if it were decided that the state could take those all over and turn them into state parks, who knows what would happen to the trails.
Yeah.
So we were monitoring that really closely. Fortunately, it didn't happen, so we don't have to worry about that problem at this time. But there are occasional times when we will say an opinion. Right now, the Parks and Wildlife is exploring a trail user fee to try and help fund some of the maintenance. One of the really cool things here in Mesa County, there was a study done back in 2018, I think it was, by Dr. Perry at CMU.
Oh, yeah.
And he analyzed the value that trails bring to the community, and it's absolutely astronomical.
Yeah.
The amount of money, the amount of tourism that comes in. One of the things that he found in his study, I believe it was 70% of the trail users were from outside of Mesa County. They were visitors coming in just to ride and enjoy the area. So the county specifically has really recognized that. And in addition to us, there's a group that we work really closely with called the Mesa County Trail Crew. They are actually full-time trail maintenance. So there's, I believe, 5 of them. One, during the winter, they work down here in the valley, and during the summer, they spend a lot of time up on the mesa, just for heat reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we have riders all over the valley all the time. And so if we see a spot that needs attention that we don't have a scheduled work day for, we're really in contact with this crew. And we can say, hey, maybe there's a boulder on the trail that needs to be moved, or maybe there's some drainage, the trail's eroding, and there's a secondary route that's forming. They have the ability to mobilize and go address those pretty quickly, and much quicker than we can.
So if there's an obstacle on a trail that appears to be dangerous, or there's been a number of incidents with, who makes that decision to remove or to change that trail?
So ultimately, it's the land manager. Okay. So it'll be the BLM or the Forest Service in most cases out here. They will work with the Mesa County Trail Crew. They have maintenance agreements with that crew as well to be out digging on federal land. If we have the ability to get a group out there to do it, great. As a volunteer organization, it's a little harder for us to mobilize, whereas Mesa County has a full-time crew. Yeah. So they can usually get out in a day or two. Sometimes the obstacle just disappears. There's no official reason where it went or who did anything on it, but it's no longer in the middle of the trail, and that's what matters. We had that happen last year with the boulder out at the Kokopelli trails that was blocking part of the trail and was a hazard, and by the time that the Mesa County work crew got out there, it was gone. Yeah, nobody officially knows where it went. We didn't organize to get rid of it, but some other people did. Well, and it disappeared. So a lot of our maintenance operations are larger events. So we have a group going out tomorrow, actually. They are going to be, where are they? They're going to be out at the lunch loops from 9 to 1 tomorrow morning. There will be a group of about 25 people. We'll have a tent in the parking lot letting people know that work is going on, and we'll have some people probably with some maps and some information about the trail. As I mentioned, about 70% of our users countywide are from out of the area. So it's people that's coming down. They still got snow up in the Rifle area on some of their trails. They can't ride them, so they come down here. In the summertime, a lot of Moab riders will come over here to get rid of the crowds. It's a little less crowded. And we'll have about 25 people up at the trail with picks and shovels, fixing whatever they happen to see. So a lot of times it's, especially after rainstorms, we get ruts right down the middle of the trails. Yep. Lunch loops is super popular for that. If you guys remember the monsoon rains a couple of years ago, those are some of the trail systems that were they weren't designed. People just started walking, and over time it became a trail, and then they started riding. Over time it became a riding trail. It's super fun, but it wasn't designed for longevity. And so there are a lot of areas, especially on the west side of Little Park Road, in the Gunny Loop area that you were talking about, where anytime there's a rainstorm, the water runs right down the middle of the trail and just tears it up. And so we will go in and identify those locations, and we'll build drainages so that the next time it rains, hopefully that doesn't happen again.
So before, Morgan, you ask your question, with people being at the lunch loops tomorrow, can just anyone show up and volunteer, or do you have to specifically be a member of
You do not have to be a member of COPMOBA. The volunteer opportunities are all on our website, so you can go on and just sign up to be a volunteer. We just have to to limit it. We usually limit it to 20 to 22. Part of that is because a crew leader can only handle so many people.
Yeah.
And because we have to build to specific standards and we have to maintain to specific standards, we can't just have 20 people out there running around with no leader.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the number of crew leaders that we have available on any given date. But we usually cap the volunteer number around 20.
Okay. Morgan, what's your question?
What trail are you guys working on in the lunch loops tomorrow?
That is a great question, and I have no idea. So what happens when we do these trail days, we'll send some scouts out earlier this week. So sometime this week, some people went out on their bikes and they rode most of the lunch loops and they identified places that needed help. So I haven't seen that list yet, so I'm not entirely sure of where they're going to be tomorrow.
And what was the first, do you know what the first trail was in the Grand Valley?
I don't, but people have been here for thousands of years, so I don't know that anybody really knows what the first trail was.
Or what was the first, biking trail that people actually started to ride?
Well, they've been riding the lunch loops for a really, really long time. Back when Grand Junction wasn't quite so big, because it's so close to town, people were just riding out there for fun. And then I'd mentioned that the Kokopelli trail system really got built around 89, 90, 91. But we've seen records even back to as early as the 1970s of different bicycle advocacy groups in town wanting different trails. So it's really hard. A lot of times there weren't any records that were kept. So we can't really say definitively what the first trails were.
Morgan, do you have a spot on the trail that at the lunch loops that you think needs work?
The part that's right before you go down, curves down, and it's the two ledges on the hill.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've done any work on those, but I know what you're talking about. And maybe we'll get that on one of our future work days, because the last time I rode them, they were starting to fall apart too. Yeah. I'm really happy that you ride those, because those are not easy obstacles. That's awesome.
Keeping on the subject of trail maintenance, there was this past winter, I believe, part of the plunge had the rock slide.
Yes.
What's the budget for maintenance on the plunge? What does trail maintenance look like? Is there anything that you guys can do to prevent those kind of things?
So there's nothing that we can do to prevent them.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to happen, especially in that last mile or so down in that drainage area. There is an ongoing budget. I don't know the exact numbers for it. The BLM is also up there and very active in clearing that. That specific area, we had members from our organization, members of the work crew in Mesa County, and members of the BLM up there for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very large rock slide that happened. So it was a concerted effort to get it clear. A lot of the people that work up there are volunteers also. There are community members that aren't even associated with COPMOBA that love that area and would go up and just help. So in big events like that, there are a lot of people that come together to try and get the trails back open.
Is the plunge, when they first put the plunge in, it was kind of this huge grand trail, or at least that's how they advertised it. Yeah. Has the plunge delivered the way that they thought it would, if that makes sense?
It has delivered in that it is an epic trail. If you've never ridden it,
no, I haven't.
It will take you all day. I
don't want to ride it. I'm not an exposure person. I don't like exposure.
So it's definitely an epic ride, and it's a lot of fun to be able to say that you've done it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people will compare it to the whole enchilada in Moab, which is almost entirely downhill, whereas the plunge has a lot of climbing. So there are some super fast, super fun downhill spots. But as soon as you get at the end of the downhill, you're going to have to climb back up a hill. And that's what people really get frustrated with. If you do the entire thing, it's 31 miles. Okay. And when you get to mile 28 and 29, you're still climbing uphill. And you think, why did I just come 29 miles down a hill to go back up another one? So it is an absolutely epic ride. It's a lot of fun. For first timers who want to try it, I would recommend just doing the downhill 17 miles from Shirttail Point. and getting rid of the 14 miles that are on the top of the mesa.
Okay.
That's another issue that people will run into. It could be 50 degrees when you start off Highway 65,
Yeah.
and by the time you get into the valley, it's 102.
Yep.
And so it can be deceiving if you're not properly hydrated or you're not properly prepared or properly, I guess prepared is probably the best word for it. So for first timers who just want to experience it, that first 14 miles is a lot of fun. It just kind of rolling land through the aspen trees, and it's gorgeous up there. But it's probably best if you want to start fresh to not have that 14 miles under your belt when you start the downhill section.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, Colin? Nothing? No?
No. So as we had mentioned earlier, if you want to sign up, just go to COPMOBA.org.
Okay.
And we have all of our volunteer events on there. You don't have to be a member to come join us. Come learn how trails are built and learn maybe something that you didn't know. Yeah.
And are youth able to be volunteers? I know there's axes and pickaxes that are in use.
I think 15 is the cutoff for volunteers. I don't know that off for sure. I can look into that and get back to you. But we do have to abide by some government regulation on that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Where does the Palisade plunge end?
So it officially ends downtown in Palisade, but you have to ride about 2.5 miles on the road to get back to downtown. Otherwise, it ends right at the beginning of the Palisade Rim Trail. Which you have no idea where that's at.
Yeah.
So right at the mouth of the canyon. As you're leaving Palisade, if you look to the right, just before you go into the canyon, is where the trail officially ends.
Do you have much experience riding some of those other trails in Montrose and Delta? I mean, most people have done either Grand Junction or Ridgeway because Ridgeway is popular for camping, but do you have much experience riding those other trails?
I don't have a lot of experience. I've ridden them. They're a lot of fun, and we do group rides and things down there. But I stay up here just because it's so easy. It's one of the reasons that I love the Grand Valley is 10 minutes from my house are world-class trails. And I can go either to the Gunnison Bluffs or to the Lunch Loops, and I'm on a trail before anybody else is even awake in the morning, which is awesome. We are so blessed to have those trails here.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah. You have another question? You're full of questions today. Okay.
Was the cave on the ribbon part of it, or did you guys have to make it go in?
I don't know where that cave came from. I think it might be natural. I think it might have been there already, or maybe it was smaller and somebody's dug it out over the years. But we didn't build that. It's not officially part of the trail. The trail goes around the cave.
Have you ridden through the cave? I know we've hiked through the cave, but have you ridden through it? You have?
I have. At least I tried.
You said I rode through it?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think I've ridden through it.
I know a lot of people do ride through it, but it's not officially part of the trail on the map. It's just a cool feature that's out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I think that's all we have for you today.
All right, awesome. Let me see if we have anything.
Do you guys typically have any booths or a place where someone can come and see you at any of these festivals?
Yeah, so we try to be present at all of the festivals. Rides and Vibes and Fat Tire Fest are big fundraisers for us. We handle the beer tents most of the time. And we get a big donation from the city or the organizer for working the beer tents.
Okay.
We also have booths set up at festivals all over the place. We had one at the MAV Classic Road Races last month.
Yep.
Which other ones are we going to have? I don't know all of the stuff that we're going to be doing. We are really involved with the Banff Film Festival. Okay. So we have tables set up there. Yes, you can come see us at a lot of these different festivals where we have a presence.
We'll make sure to put your website at the bottom of the podcast so that people can go directly there too.
That would be great. There's a link on there if you want to become a member. You can become a member for as little as $20.
Okay.
And anybody under 21 can be a member for free. We don't charge a membership fee at all. And you'll get a current seat wrap. The one I brought you is from last year. You'll get a blue one from this year. You want to go on the website and sign up. And some more stickers and stuff too. And then you'll officially be a member of COPMOBA.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to come in and chat with us today. It was very informative, and I learned a lot.
About the next best thing to riding bikes is talking about bikes.
Yeah.
So this has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.